It is 6:30 and we will begin this council meeting. And I will note that Councillor Jameson is joining us online via Zoom. So we will, if anybody sees his hand up and I do not, please let me know. And please stand for the national anthem. First item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda, and the motion comes forward from Councillor Maybe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fody, that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Are there any changes, deletions? The only thing that I would ask is just to change the order for the mayor's update to be prior to our in-camera. So other than that, I'm not looking for any other changes. So I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Next item is declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Does anybody have an interest to declare? I see no hands up. So we'll move on to delegations presentations, and we have Chris Clarke and Jonathan Taylor, One Isle of Gremlins. So we will ask Mr. Taylor, do you want to come forward to speak to this? And Chris is online. So Chris, I know you're joining us virtually. If you need to add anything to that, if you could put your hand up, use the raise the hand function, and we'll be able to unmute you at that time.
I would actually like to have Chris Clarke make the presentation, if I may.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Clarke, if you could turn your camera on. Perfect. There you go.
Can everyone hear me all right?
We sure can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So thank you to everyone for having us as a delegation tonight. I know this was sort of a special request to fit us on this agenda. So we really appreciate that. And please bear with me. I've had COVID for a few days, so I'm kind of just trying to make my way through here today. In terms of the actual application, this is 2 islands that are owned by our mutual clients. One of the islands has a residential dwelling with an attached, a seasonal dwelling with an attached marine facility, and the applicants are looking to redevelop that dwelling and marine facility. So our office did a planning report to speak to the proposed zoning amendment. What's being proposed currently is the same size in terms of what's there for floor area. But with the overall marine facilities, we have ended up having a slight decrease in the marine facilities. There was an attached one that has been made slightly smaller and an overhang removed. And there was a separate marine facility, a single dock on the island. That's going to be shortened so that overall there's a net decrease in the amount of marine facilities over the water here. But overall, we're keeping the same foundation of the building. It's just going to be a redesign. The building itself is a bit older. It's been developed and redeveloped over the years, and it's getting to a point where, you know, redevelopment is better than trying to keep maintaining the current structure. So the application before you is to redevelop the dwelling and the marine facility and just bring it up to a little bit more up to speed with today's code and things like that. There was a recent update since the last meeting concerning the septic system. We had proposed a replacement sewage disposal system on the island. That was not approved by, I believe it was the health unit or the conservation authority. I can't remember who's the approval authority now, but they didn't support a new system. So we did slightly revise the ask so that the existing system could be kept in its current location. So we no longer require a replacement sewage system. And we're here before you to sort of take any additional questions or any other information that you're looking for on this application. Thanks.
Thank you. So, counselors, you'll know that we have further on in our agenda is a motion regarding 10.2 planning report SR-188-23 zoning bylaw amendment application. So this delegation is provided in advance of any decision being made. So if any of the counselors have any questions or concerns, we would ask that you voice them now as far as clarifying any details regarding this application. Any hands up? Go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. And through your worship, does anybody know what the total acreage, total area is of the two islands combined under the single roll? Thank you.
Mr. Clarke, do you happen to have that information?
I do have the planning report open. If you just give me 1 sec, I'll try and track that down. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated not having the file or anything with me right now, so.
That's okay. Mr. Taylor is also looking at his package. Are there any other questions we can ask while they're looking for the information?
Okay, so it looks like I've got 2,724 square meters for both the islands combined. So we're looking at maybe a little over half an acre.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Okay, so well, thank you for offering additional information during your delegation, unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
I don't have anything further to add. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add, Jonathan?
No, thank you.
Okay, so thank you again for coming to present, and we'll make that decision further on down in the agenda. So the next item on our agenda is moved by Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the October 10th and November 6th, 2023 public meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and October 10th, 2023 council meeting minutes and November 6th, 2023 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the September 26th, 2023 committee of adjustment meeting minutes be received and filed. Any discussion, errors or omissions in any of these minutes that we need to have noted? I see none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And that's carried. Next item is moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fody, that council approve the staff reports as recommended at the November 6th, 2023 committee of the whole meeting. So colleagues, staff reports 8.1 through 8.7. Is there anything that you feel that you need to have further clarity on or want to have further comments made? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Rupp.
Thank you. And through your worship, just this past week, we had I believe our flag was lowered for Indigenous Veterans Day.
Correct.
And would it be appropriate to add that to our flag protocol as an amendment?
I will
you.
ask the clerk to speak to that.
Through your worship, that would be appropriate to add to the policy as well.
Do we need then to do any amendment here, or can we just go ahead and add that?
Do we?
Through your worship, I recommend that we pull that report and vote on it on vote on a separate motion to
Amendment to it.
make an amendment.
Okay. So I need a motion to amend this, the council approved staff reports as recommended at the November 6th, 2023 committee, the whole meeting minutes, except for item. Sorry, can I get the motion to amend? Oh, okay. I'll let you speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In that policy, when I read it, it talked about other provincial legislated flag lowerings, to which this one becomes. So I don't know whether we need to amend this because it's going to become part of our standard through the province or federal.
Was it indeed part of the?
It is.
Because I did see that many provinces did, but it seemed to be sort of an ad hoc kind of thing.
Came across my desk as a provincial wide.
Good.
So I'm gonna ask the CAO to speak to that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Since we know the state, I don't think there's any harm in mentioning it by name in the policy, and it takes out any uncertainty that we now have this list and it's a complete list. And it's always nice to have the discretion for other holidays, provincial days of remembrance that the provincial government or the federals may want to recognize.
So I will move forward with the amendment to pull report 8.7 administration report SR-150-23 amendment to flag protocol policy. So can I have a mover for that amendment? Councillor Gorell, and a seconder, Kelman. Okay. So the motion, the amendment would be to remove report SR-150-23 from the consent agenda for approval of the staff reports. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? And it's carried. So the amended motion, which is now on the floor, is that council approve the staff reports as recommended at the November 6, 2023 committee of the whole meeting, except report SR-150-23. So are there any other comments or questions in regards to any of the other staff reports? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the amended motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Okay. Moving on to information items, and the motion comes forward from Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the information items be received and filed. So the information items at this point are being received and filed unless there's any if anybody wants to pull any of these motions. Go ahead, Councillor Fody, or Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, no, I do not wish to pull one, but just to comment to our Director of Finance for providing this information. That's kind of timely, in that obviously you know that a month from today is our budget day, so it's a good read to have a refresher and get those seeds planted in our head and financial departments. And I actually enjoyed reading all that. Thank you for supplying that information.
Any other discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Groh.
With respect to the capital status report, I see that. Do we have to pull that to have a discussion, or is that discussion open now?
Unless you're looking for changes on it, it's just more about information. So you can go ahead and ask the question at this point.
As I read that, looking over the capital, it looked like 9 million approved, of which we spent 4 with an additional 5 And later tonight, we're being asked to deal with something pretty significant financially. So I didn't have a real sense at the end of the day where our capital was at. Most of that is going to be, or 5 million of it's probably going to be required for 2024 budgeting. Would that be correct?
Treasurer?
Through you, your worship. Yes, that's correct. The 2023 capital budget included about 2 million for the fire hall. So in that 5 million unspent, 2 million's that, and about 1.5 million is still to come in the Ivy Lee, which we are expecting to pay that before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. But that will then bring up part of the discussion when we get to, I don't know the number, but the fire hall. Can you say that again? There's 2 million there for the fire hall, number 2.
Yes, correct. In the 2023 capital budget.
Yeah, in the capital budget. And leaping ahead here, when I read the report on the fire hall, I didn't see where that was included in the fire hall number 2 in that report. We can talk about it then, which may be more appropriate. But there is 2 million for the 20, which will be a carry forward to 2024.
Yes.
Or is that something we have to decide upon?
Well, if council goes forward with the fire hall 2, it would be, so there was budget in this year for the fire hall, the 2 million, of which that was to be budgeted through debt. So that's how the 2023 funding plan was put together.
We'll finalize that in that discussion.
Right.
But thank you. Thank you. That's it. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions in regards to the item? I'm having trouble pulling up my agenda. The one for McKellar, that's the one for publishing digitally, is it not? Yes. Okay. So I just want to make it known that one of the challenges that every municipality faces, it's great to see that the Township of McKellar is identifying an issue that's happening in a lot of small municipalities, which is the fact that small newspapers don't exist anymore. So to do advertising for public input, it's really becoming more and more difficult, especially for smaller communities who don't have coverage. So I know I appreciate the fact that they have brought this forward to the government, and I believe it is also on Roma's radar for the record. Any other items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next item is under action items, which is a motion coming forward from Councillor Maybe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fody. Whereas a consultation process has occurred regarding a proposed communication facility tower at 280 Highway 15 for Rogers Communications Inc., represented by Eric Belchamber and Associates, the agent. And whereas telecommunication facilities are regulated by Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada under the Radio Communication Act, which requires proponents to consult with local land use authorities and follow local protocol concerning location of such facilities. And whereas the township has a consultation protocol described in telecommunication tower and related facilities protocol, the protocol, which includes the council providing comment on the proposed tower. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to submit a letter of concurrence to the agent indicating that the agent has complied with the protocol, and that further that the letter shall also indicate that in the event the tower is no longer required, Rogers Communication Inc. shall remove the tower from the property. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And the motion is carried. Next item is planning report SR-188-23 zoning bylaw amendment application to amend the RI-19 zone, file number D14-2023-012. One Isle of the Gremlins The motion comes forward from Counselor Maybe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fody, that council approves the zoning bylaw amendment attached to planning report SR 188-23 as Exhibit K to amend the provisions of the Island Residential Special Exception RI 19 zone to permit the renovation/reconstruction of existing dwelling and attached marine facility. Discussion on this motion. I have no hands up. I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Next item on the agenda is operations report SR 194-23 RFP OPS 2023-024 village drainage and urbanization design. Motion comes forward from Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Counselor Maybe, that council authorize staff to engage J.L. Richards for the township's portion of the design of drainage improvements and village urbanization for the Lansdowne Village in the amount of $243,754.88 inclusive of the net HST, and that council authorize staff to engage Concept Dash Inc. for the design of drainage improvements and village urbanization for Rockport Village in the amount of $76,727.04 inclusive of the net HST. Discussion on the motion. I have Counselor Lackey and then Counselor Grau.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. With the Lansdowne portion, I know when the third line went in for the railroad, it made some drastic changes to our drainage in the village. And I was wondering if there was a plan already done. I'm in favor of getting this fixed and moving ahead, but I just wondered if there was something sitting on the shelf somewhere already from that era where we recognize the problem.
Thank you, through your worship. We were able to pull some drawings from that were completed by Greer Galloway, a survey. I don't think a design was ever moved forward with that project. There was some surveying completed on Grand Trunk, on Gilbert, the bottom end of Miller, but that's as much information as we have. So we did include that as part of this this project, and we are looking at some options for stormwater pond south of the tracks, the potential for that.
Thank you.
Okay, and Counselor Grau, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. The Rockport Village, when I read this, it looks like we're concentrating on that area between the parking lot, around the boat ramp and so on. Is there more to that, Dave? Is there anything with for instance, Birch's Lane, that short stretch that's in pretty horrible condition?
Thank you, through your worship. When we put that out, we included all roads that were within the limits of the village. So Selton Road is a part of it as well, out past the cemetery. Escott Rockport Road, north of Selton Road, north of Old River. Old River actually beyond Birch's Lane. Birch's Lane and Front Street. All of those were included as part of this, as well as having the conversations with Thousand Islands Parkway, dealing with the CLI ECA for both projects. So the ECAs for stormwater, and having public meetings as part of the EA process as well. So this is fully encapsulating.
So this is a sum of money for more planning, more detailed planning, and then that would require a capital project. Is that what I'm reading here?
That is correct.
Okay.
This is taking, putting an urban cross-section with proper drainage into the village, and sidewalks and all those types of things. But that does require us to go through the EA process and have public meetings and all those.
Okay. And seeing as you brought it up, in dealing with the St. Lawrence Park Commission, any thoughts, or could we incorporate that concept of parking on the north side of the parkway? Again, maybe making it more formalized there?
So the report provided by Dylan was included with this as well too, that did take that all into consideration. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So just to further tack on to that, the Dylan report that was done with all the input from the community at that time, and some of the things that were identified as issues were brought forward. This is more about getting a detailed concept so that we can go out to tender eventually.
That is correct. This is getting the full detailed cross-section plan and profile drawings with, you know, what will the grades be? How do we tie it in? How do we deal with all the drainage challenges and consideration for active transportation, not only on the local roads, but also crossing the Thousand Islands Parkway as well too.
So this is the technical study.
Very technical, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to our Director of Operations. Further to these past discussions, so this whole concept, when completed, would set you right up for a RFP, I assume. Would it be that finalized?
For the Village of Rockport, we would be tender ready at that point and determining how we stage it. There are some developments that are happening in Rockport that we'd want to take into consideration. We don't want to rebuild the roads before the developments are done. You let the developments happen first. In the Village of Lansdowne, obviously we're undertaking the Hydro G study and a few other things right now. So it's pulling all of that information together to make us shovel ready. And should a grant opportunity come down, then we will be ready for it to come.
Okay, and a follow-up question, if I may, Your Worship. What time frame would you anticipate this much detail would take?
I think that to do something at this level with the surveying, the design, the public meetings, we're looking at similar time frame as we did with Ivy Lee and with the fire hall. It'd be about a year and a half to get everything wrapped up.
Thank you.
Okay. Further comments or questions? Okay. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it is carried. Okay, next item is operations report SR-193-23 tender RFT-OPS-2023-025 Leeds Fire Station 2. Move by Councillor Lackey, seconded by Councillor Garrell, that council directs staff to proceed with option blank as described in operations report SR-193-23. So obviously the option is left blank until we get some sort of consensus of which way we are going. At that time, we'll fill that in, reread the motion after we have discussion. So the floor is open for discussion on Station 2. Go ahead. I'll have Councillor Garrell, then Councillor Lackey, and then maybe.
Through you, Your Worship, as I read this, and because of the amount of money we're talking about, I'm wondering why we are bringing this forward for a decision before we have an overall look at our 2024 budget planning meeting. It strikes me that this is significant, and I just wonder if we could talk that over. This should be part of, in my opinion, should be part of the broader budget that we have for the township. Thank you.
Okay, is there any context to that staff can provide why it was brought forward now versus waiting? Or do you want to, the only other option is that you would need to put a motion to defer on the floor, and then that would have to be supported.
That's correct.
Is that?
No,
Oh, okay.
I just, simple question to start.
Okay, so, oh, go ahead, Director, my apologies.
Thank you, through your worship. The intent of closing the fire hall in advance of the budget was so that we actually had the numbers for 2024. We didn't expect it to come in at 5.8. We thought it'd be around where we had always assumed it would be. And just knowing what exactly that number should be, so that when we're preparing the budget, that we have that definitive number to work with moving forward. That was the intent.
Okay. And then I have Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I agree with Councillor Garrell that this is going to come up in budget in the overall picture, but as it stands in front of us, I would have to go with option 3, and the reason is I find that there's somewhere along the line there's been a major disconnect between the designer and perhaps in engineering. In the past, there's been some work together so that a designer should have some sort of comprehension of what they're designing is going to cost. You know, an architect does what he does with no bearing on what it costs. He gives you what you want. But you know, when it comes down to it, the engineer is pretty much going to tell you what it's going to cost. So I'm definitely not in favor of paying that much more. I think we need to go back to the drawing board and think this through again. If in fact it is going to cost 5.8 or 5.6, whatever it is, I'm looking at the per square foot of some of the other ones, some of the other places that were recently built in the construction phase, and you know, I see we're in a little high. I think maybe we're going for something more elaborate than what we need. We do have 4 stations plus fire training, so we've got lots on our plate. So right now, I think they better come back maybe with something a little more affordable.
So Councillor Lackey is spoken in favor of option 3. So Councillor, maybe go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I'd like to hear from our financial wizard over there what we are going to do with this and how this all plays with, because when Director Kate was here, lost her last name, sorry.
Bindle.
Well,
Close. Your hair's not quite as long.
she actually proposed different numbers because we thought they were different numbers, as well as Ivy Lee, as well as a fire truck played into this. So I'm wondering how that's playing into these numbers and how that's going to relate to our budget. That might help us get a better understanding of this price and how we're going to debenture it if we're going to keep it that way. Thank you.
Through you, your worship. Yeah, I can say for the 2023 financial plan for Ivy Lee, the fire hall, and the fire truck as well, it had built into it a total of just over $8 million in potential debt for all 3 projects. So this project, the way it stands in this report, is about an extra 2.2 million. What that equates to over a 30-year loan at 5%, that's about an extra $145,000 a year in annual payments. So that's the potential impact on the tax rate that this overage would have. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Go ahead.
As a follow-up, so are we going to get a loan for the Ivy Lee Wharf, which is coming in at a smaller price than initially thought, I believe by roughly $1 million, I thought. And the fire truck, is that coming out of our
Reserves.
that's it. Thank you. I was thinking slush fund more than reserves.
That's the not.
definitely not.
That is
flush.
Not what it is.
That we
Not what it
use.
is. And I knew that. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. But if we have the reserve and the truck's out of that and the Ivy Lee Wharf is less than it was proposed, how does that play into this?
Yes. So for the fire truck specifically, I can say the fleet and equipment reserve, that is a reserve that's, I would say, is under a lot of stress. So even at the end of 2023, even with that fire truck being purchased or funded through debt or proposed, that reserve fund was going to only be around 400,000, and that's prior to next year. So that the fleet and machine equipment reserve funds already, per the financial plan, expected to go into a deficit position as soon as next year. So in theory, it'd be interfund borrowing between the other reserves. So there really isn't money in that fleet reserve for these large trucks. That's definitely something we're going to be looking at in an updated financial plan that, especially with fleet and equipment, it's whatever you think is inflation for normal things, fleet inflation far outpaces regular inflation. So that is something we have to build in, but that reserve will be in a deficit position as soon as next year. The Ivy Lee, so in the financial plan, there was about 2.6 million put aside for Ivy Lee in terms of in debt financing, and my expectation is that that's where we're going to be just under that at the end of the project. Director of Operations may correct me, but I believe it's going to come in right around that, just under. So in terms of that, it is right in line with the financial plan that was presented in 2023.
Okay, another follow-up, please.
Sure.
Sorry, so what I'm hearing is our fleet fund is going to be depleted pretty well, and there's going to be some more purchases required. So those extra funds, are we going to go back to a loan kind of to try to get that, or are we going to have enough in our reserve funds to cover this? Because our asset management is showing up that there's other things required here in the near future.
Yeah, so the financial plan didn't call for any after these three projects. There was no further expected debt until potentially out into 2030. So I'm not anticipating outside of these projects, when we bring capital budget forward, I'm anticipating that it would be fully funded. We wouldn't be adding to these or any further debt projects.
So
Potentially.
again, just as a follow-up, when you show that our potential monthly or a yearly payout is 445,000 round numbers, does that include these three projects altogether, or is this just for the fire hall?
That's just for the fire hall.
Okay, so with the other two added in there, what will we be at if you have that number?
It would be so for every $1 million on a 30-year 5% fixed loan, it's about $65,000 in annual payments. So the other's about 240. So it'd be about 670,000 combined.
Yeah, a year.
All three. Now I would say currently as the expenditures are going out, we have already paid for the fire truck, Ivy Lee War. So we do put off issuing the debt as long as possible. And all these projections are based on current 30-year 5%. So it is expected that hopefully those rates will go down. We would not be locking ourselves into a 30-year 5% with the expectation that the borrowing costs would go down in the next couple of years.
So it is a floating rate, not a fixed rate, more or less.
Well, most long-term debt we would take out where we could open it up after 3 or 5 years. We wouldn't lock in at 5% for 30 years. But
Which is what we would have to do if we went with Infrastructure Ontario.
that is my understanding, yes.
Okay, so I will recognize Deputy Mayor Fody and then anybody else, and then Councillor Kelman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. A question to Director of Finance or Operations. Where do you see the three of these items? The fire truck we have, the Ivy League dock is all but finished. We should have that within a narrow window of dollars. What do you see the three of these tickets adding up to right now, knowing we have this proposal for the fire hall? I have my math. I just want to see if yours agrees with mine, because yours is more accurate than mine.
They would add up to just over $10 million. Your Worship.
Right.
That's a 6.8, a 2.6, and about 850,000.
Right. And I know I made a phone call last week to the Director of Operations on Friday about the conversation of how much money less Ivy League cost us from what we had originally anticipated and been led to believe. So what have we saved there? Somewhere around, is $500,000 too high, or is it higher than that? On the savings end, sorry.
I believe that I brought the number to council with the tender amount. And we're pretty close to hitting that tender amount at the end. We'll be within $100,000 of that tender amount. Now we have not spent the contingency to date, and we're almost at the end of the project. So there is a bit of a savings in there. But the contingency was only for $200,000. So somewhere between the $200,000 and $300,000 mark, I guess, at the end of the project.
Okay. All right. I'll make my point. When I'm reading these three options, there's only one that has a dollar amount attached to it. And in my day-to-day with connections, I know a couple of people that have put off purchasing, not to this extent, I'll admit, only to find out that it was much more costly just 60 days later for the same item, which in turn, in one case, was canceled because of. I I know this is high. We didn't expect it this high. I don't think any of us expected it to be this high. But my fear is if we go to any other option or put it off, this might look real low. 66 months from now, 60 days from now. I don't know that any more than anyone else. But I do know it's not apt to go down. That's my point. And if we go to option 2 or 3, it's a total unknown. And then if we go back to retendering, and as Councillor Lackey had stated, or renegotiating this whole thing, I guess we could cut back on the bells and whistles, but I don't think the fire hall in its original state was that grandiose. I think we had trimmed it enough to try and create something of value. And here we are at 5.8. The only comfort, I guess, in this proposal, the RFP, when it comes back, by having 13 bidders in on this and seeing their numbers in close proximity to each other, even though they're spread out over 5.8 to 8.8, there's a $3 million spread. But that's their factors, not ours. But nonetheless, it gives me a little comfort in knowing that they're all looking at this in similar ways. My point is, if we go to either other option, they're all going to come back in similar ranges to each other, but at what level? Total unknown. As much as it is a hard pill to swallow, I've always believed in the known factor, and I would be choosing option 1.
Okay, I have Councillor Kelman, then Councillor Garrell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I completely agree with Deputy Mayor Fody. I think perhaps the numbers aren't as shocking to me because I haven't been around since the beginning of this process, but I think we need a new fire hall. We've already had a report showing that we need this new location to service the zone properly, and that's not going to change. And I don't think the numbers are ever going to come down in terms of how expensive it is to build. I really strongly feel with this design that we have, and I think it has been pared down quite a bit, but still at the design that we've approved, I think we're building for the future. And I think that this fire hall is going to be in operation if we were to build it as the plan that we've looked at. It's going to be operating and existing long past when it's paid off. And so, as Deputy Mayor Fody says, it's a lot more than we expected to be spending now, but I think we're going to have to spend it eventually anyway, and I think it's well worth it. And I really understand the hesitation to do this ahead of budget, but it sounds to me like our Director of Finance and Director of Operations have really carefully considered this, and they don't seem to be overly concerned. And so I am not either, and I would be choosing option 1.
Okay, Councillor Garrell, go ahead.
Thank you to you, Your Worship. I see that Councillor Jameson also has his hand up.
I've got him on the list.
All
Thank you.
right. Through you, if this had been brought to us a few years ago, there would be no question we wouldn't go for it. We had approved about 2 years ago, 4.7 in debt, and it was going to cover a boat ramp, it was going to cover a fire truck, and it was cover a fire hall. We talked then about being concerned about 4.7 of debt. Here we are with an enormous, relatively much larger number, which to me is unsustainable for this township. And I would have a hard time justifying to the taxpayers that, yes, we just spent $8 million on a fire hall, one of 4. I would suggest that and by the way, I did look into the third, the fire hall. You put Windsor, Cornwall, and you put Rideau Lakes. I looked into the Rideau Lakes. They approved a month ago, 2.1 million for a 4-bay single bays, if that's the right term, right? And it had many of the features. They may be smaller, but they had many of the features. I'm not suggesting that we copy them, but if they can come into a number of 2.1 and feel comfortable a month ago, and somebody in Perth is going to build it, I can't believe that we would not take advantage of a little bit of time here to reconsider that option of a $7 million fire hall of one of four. So I would, if it came to it tonight, I have two thoughts. One, we defer this, and if you don't want to defer it, the only option for me is number 3. And that would be agreeing with Councillor Lackey that we can't afford, we got too much house here. We can't afford that much house, and we can't afford a Cadillac. So let's get a reasonable fire hall that we can deal with, and think about the saving, and think about a nice new pumper or tanker, which we are going to be faced with shortly enough. So let's think in terms of kind of a holistic view there and say, let's reduce it. Let's make it work, and let's get ourselves a new fire truck at the same time. It's been pointed out from finance, if I followed that argument, that this year we'd be looking at $10 million in debt. Well, 2024, when completion. That's a long haul from 4.7 2 years ago. And I am not anywhere near accepting that. So I'd go at best a deferral or number 3. And I'd prefer a deferral unless so that we could discuss number 3 to see what we could do there. I think we're being asked a lot for a weekend of thoughtfulness from Friday night to Tuesday. I've done nothing but think about this and read, and it's a little hefty for me to just say a number 1 or 2. So number 3 would be my vote. Thank you.
I have Councillor Jameson, and then I saw Councillor Lackey's hand up. So go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all the points that have been raised. The issue with this fire hall has really been a can that's been kicked down the road now for years. And it was established some years ago, and we addressed this, and Councillor Correll states quite rightly, we saw different figures. But first and foremost, the health and safety of the residents involved here requires us to replace the fire station. I do agree that the deferral is an option that is more palatable to me than a rejection. The challenge that we face is that, in my view, and I'm sorry because I'm fighting this stupid COVID thing, it's our obligation to ensure the health and safety of our residents. The serviceability of that particular station is not really about putting a dab of paint on it and trying to get by. The service coverage area that is being neglected now is pretty worrying when you look at the studies that were done some years ago showing catchment area, coverage area. We really are risking a lot of challenge for people up and down the road. So my view is we should move forward. I do not believe that in 60 days we're going to see a miracle change in cost. I appreciate all I'm hearing, but these are some things that I want to say I just do not understand why we would lump in the wharf into this discussion, because while the wharf, in my view, is a very necessary thing for us to do, the fire station is a critically necessary. It's not a nice thing or a better thing. It's a need thing. And this is the point where Councillor Kelman points to 25, 30 years down the road. This is a leadership moment. And I know it's tough on the money, but now is the time to move. So I'm afraid I cannot see any other option but one. And I also have complete confidence in our operations people and our staff in general to make sure that this is managed meticulously well. It will not suddenly become 2019 again, but we're here, and I think we need to move ahead in the service of our residents. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Lackey, I have you next, but if you would be so kind as to allow me to ask 2 questions of the director, if you don't mind. So my question to you is, what has it cost us to design to date? I just want to be clear on what the costs are, and if we were to redesign this, would it cost us the exact same amount? Would it be close to that? And timeframes? I'm just looking for some context.
Thank you. I believe to date we're at about $170,000. So far we are about a year and a half, just over a year into this. We have the approval with the site plan that we'd have to consider. If we're going to change that outlook, then I believe we have to do that. I think we'd have to have conversations with the Conservation Authority again. So with all of that taken into consideration, as well as the design itself, we'd probably be looking at another 8 months, 6 to 8 months.
To get a new design
I would think so, yeah.
on the same footprint?
Well, if it's the same footprint, then no. But if we're changing, like right now, we're containing the rainwater with the storage tanks as an example. So we have to reconsider what we're doing with all the rainwater. We'd have to get approvals for how we do that. So that's, CRC is about 2 months right now. And then we'd have to go through site plan. And I think we have to have the CRCA satisfied. I'm looking at the director of planning. We have to have that sort of sorted before we can bring it through site plan, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It all has to happen. The site plan's a small piece of the
Yep.
bigger puzzle, so.
Yeah, and then the detailed design on top of that.
But just to go to show that there are a number of steps that have to happen if we choose to deviate from this design.
Correct. There were several hoops that we had to jump through in order to get this design off the ground.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to the director. You used Cornwall, Windsor, Rideau Lakes. Why Cornwall, Windsor? I mean, they're city centers, far different than our rural environment, number one. Now Rideau Lakes, to me, at $2 million, I guess that's where I'm thrown off, is we use 2 big centers. And then we throw one rural municipality in there. Did we check on other municipalities in Eastern Ontario? That was the first question. My other question is, during the design process, and I alluded it to you in my first comment, was there any reach out as far as, okay, as we're designing this, what could this cost? Again, when I look at architects I'll take this building, for instance, the architect doesn't care what it costs. The architect gives you what you want. Then the engineer is taxed with putting that all together with a cost. So I guess, do we need to go back to, if it's, who did we use here for design? If we need them to go back and redesign, it could be the same size. It could be much similar, but I'm looking at the square footage of Rideau Lakes and at $2 million, and we're at 5.8. So and this was within the last year. So what are we doing that makes ours so much more than theirs?
Thank you, through your worship. So the 3 halls that I picked, in today's age, you think it'd be easy to find the information, but it's not. So we use a program called Bids and Tenders, and these were the only 3 this year that I was able to get the costing on through that system. I can't use any other system because we don't use it for our procurement. So this is what I have access to. In terms of the halls themselves, I thought this was a very good cross section as well of the halls. Cornwall is very similar to what we're constructing. They're looking ahead. They're designing for the future. They're taking into consideration, like we're looking at capturing the rainwater. Instead of putting in the forced air systems, we're looking at the hydronic systems, which over the course of their life will save us about $250,000 in heating by heating the floors of the hall itself. All of these different things that we've considered with the project is for efficiency, is for the longevity Going with the steel roof that we did instead of a flat top roof or a shingled roof that would require replacement. I heard loud and clear the concerns that we had with a flat roof when it was presented. So that was why I selected those three. What I can tell you about the one in Rideau Lakes, it's a good Butler building. You know, it has walls and it has a roof. It does have the two four-stair venting systems in the garage. It doesn't have the office space that we've included for future growth. It does not have a kitchen. It doesn't have several of the things, but it is a good hall. You know, you have your trucks and you have a training center. So it does check those boxes. In terms of the costing, I think I brought reports to council on 2 or 3 occasions. We started it with a Class C cost estimate through a cost consultant. So yes, we had the architect doing the designing. We had HVAC designers. We had electrical designers. We had a site plan done by an engineering firm. Like, all of these groups brought all of their information together, and then it went through the cost consultants, and there was a detailed costing of each individual item. And we received a Schedule C, which was the highest level. And then we received the Schedule B, which I came out in, I think it was April of this year. And then we had not received a Class A estimate until after the tender had closed. And when it came in, they had estimated at 6.7 million as well, based on some of these factors of halls that had closed. So we did have cost consultants. We did have engineers and architects all working together on this. It wasn't just one group. It was a whole team of professionals working on this for us.
Okay.
Just one more comment, if I may
Sure.
finish up, and then I'll get out of here. Take this for what it's worth, which is 0. You can't predict the future, which is evident by what we're sitting in today. You can't do it. You may think you're planning for 30 years from now. It doesn't work that way. 10 years from now, what we think we've done as a great thing is not. There's what happened to LEED certification of buildings with some of the environmental, some of the materials used. LEED certification was a big thing back in the day. You don't hear that anymore, and that wasn't that long ago. So what we think is planning for the future today, simply, I don't feel, I wouldn't put my money in that basket. But anyway, again, it's just what it's worth.
Okay. I'll recognize Deputy Mayor Fody, and then I'm gonna figure out what we're doing next here.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship, to our Director of Operations. When they submit these RFPs, how long is that money good for?
The responses to the tenders are good for 60 days.
Not very long. And just to comment to your comparison with Rideau Lakes, when I read that, is that fire station not just one bay deep with no rear doors?
That is correct. The bay, it's
So
a
that
single
would-
bay, 43 feet deep.
Right, and we're looking at double depth with twice the capacity for storage, for trucks, what have you. And so I just wanted to clarify that, because that's what I got from reading that, was that fire hall technically is half the truck capacity that we're looking at. Correct?
That is correct.
Like, all things considered.
The Rideau Lakes Fire Hall is 4,800 square feet, and the one that we're looking to construct is 8,200 square feet.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. The other thing I didn't mention earlier on, and when I was talking about the money, we all have the figures in front of us. What was the reason all these other contractors went as high as $3 million higher than the lowest bidder? That's the part that scares me about putting this off. The trajectory is up, not down. And if all these other contractors had the very same information and they come in with these much higher, well, incrementally they went up and ended up much higher on the top end. But if they're coming in at 8.8 million and we're at 5.8, it's I don't know, it makes me nervous about not moving forward with a no one. But I won't repeat what I had already said. I prefer with the facts I have rather than the hypothetical. Thank you.
So based on the conversation and the questions, I've got 2 options where I'm either putting in option 1 as described in operations report SR-193-23, based on what people have spoken for, the majority of the comments, or deferral. So I'm understanding, so a couple of things, I'm just trying to talk out loud so I can formulate this correctly. If we were to defer, we would have to make a decision prior to the 60 days in order to award the tender. Correct? Correct, sorry, correct?
That is
Director?
correct.
Okay. And so the 60 days are from the time of receipt of the tender, which would have been a week ago Friday, which is November the 2nd. So we would have to be awarding this in order to take this pricing scheme. It would have to be by January 2nd. Okay. So with that, as I said, based on the majority of people who spoke for specific recommendations was for option 1. But a deferral would have to be considered and decided upon prior to Christmas break. So just go ahead, Councillor Grow.
Just for clarity, I wasn't clear on when you say it was 4 persons in favor, a majority in favor of number 1. I didn't get that impression. Could we poll then to make sure? Or
well,
is that correct? Is that what we're at?
The
Could we poll?
consensus there, it's not an official vote, but
No, it's not, just poll.
Councillor Jameson, Councillor Kelman, Councillor Fody were in favor of option 1. You were in favor of option 3, as was Mr. Lackey, and Mr. Maybe did not say. So that's why I took the.
Okay.
That's the people who voted in favor. That's why I'm asking whether you want a deferral or whether based on the majority of speakers.
Excuse me, but that still doesn't answer the question to me. So that's a deferral.
So you're in favor of deferral.
And that's fine.
So I just for procedural bylaw here. So the motion that's on the floor has a blank option in it right now. It's based on the majority of speakers who indicated what option they were in favor of. Option 1 was the one who people identified that the most. That's why I chose it. Okay. The deferral is still, nobody's made a motion to defer. All I'm saying is that if there was a motion to defer, it needs to be decided upon prior to Christmas in order to award or not go forward. So Councillor or Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. I should have clarified and I did not. I prefer motion 1 if we're going to vote, but I have no problem deferring this, providing we make a decision on budget day, December 14th.
So procedurally, and I'll put that motion to defer on in 2 seconds. Procedurally, if we make that motion on the day that we're having the special meeting for budget, would we have to have a special council meeting thereafter in order to ratify the decision? Okay, it's just so that we're clear on what the thing was. So we may have to, because we have to provide notice and all that kind of jazz. Okay, so the motion defer to the December 14th budget meeting, is that which the deferral is? I just need somebody to make the motion to defer.
Okay, Your Worship. I will also make a motion to defer to December the 14th. Is that all you
And
need?
a decision to be made
That
at
day?
that time as part of the budget decision.
That still gives us time within our 60-day reference, should we choose to go that way.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Fody.
Just a question on that. It would require a special council meeting to make a decision in public forum.
Afterwards.
Therefore, why don't we defer it until a special meeting to be determined before the end of the year? Rather than, we're going to have a busy day on budget day. They always are. And I would feel more comfortable if we could have that. And then within a relatively short time frame, this comes to the table. That's all. I rather than the 14th, I thought we could do it special.
So the motion to defer allows us to choose an option on the 14th, and we can sort out the special meeting afterwards. We don't have to have it that day.
Okay.
I'm
As
just
long as
saying-
we're not locked into the 14th, excuse me.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
So the Deputy Mayor Fode's made a motion to defer this further debate on this motion to until December 14th. And the seconder for said motion, Councillor Garrell. Okay, voting on, oh, sorry, Councillor Jameson, my apologies. Go ahead, speaking for or against the deferral.
Well, I'm speaking against deferral. I believe that the undertone is disturbing for me. I understand the money as well as anybody else around the table. But at no time other than me, I think, have talked about the obligations to our residents with respect to this fire hall. And this has been kicked down the road for years and years and years. And if we think the next 60 days is going to give us a $2 million fire hall, well, we know it isn't. So the need to move ahead is partly because we have to stop kicking things down the road. And two, we have to take advantage of what's on the table in front of us to make the best possible show of this before we move into 2024. Over and over, I will say it and then I will be quiet. I know it's to Councillor Lackey's point about it. What I'm saying is worth nothing. What I'm saying is, yes, there's no 30-year horizon, but the reality is that we cannot continue to take the chance to continue to neglect our residents up here in this part of the ward. And this is why I am against deferring. I think we need to you know, take action. Let's be brave and just get it done. Thank you.
Okay, so speaking for or against the deferral. Okay, I will call the question on the deferral. All those in favor of the deferral? Against? And the motion to defer is carried. Okay, so the motion to defer, this will be further discussed on December 14th. I would strongly recommend that if you have any additional comments or questions for either the Director of Operations or the Treasurer pertaining to specifically design when it comes to the Director or the Fire Chief, and where, you know, you may foresee some other changes. But also please take the time to speak to our treasurer in regards to costs associated with carrying the debt, what this means in the context of the larger budget. I know that you'll be getting your budget binders hopefully in the next couple of weeks, or end of the month. So it'll give you a week, 10 days to sit and wrestle with that. Again, when you get your binder, please make sure that you come in and book a time to speak with the treasurer or the other senior managers to discuss their respective budgets, so that you have the best understanding possible. And I know that they're happy to have those conversations in advance as well as here at the table. Okay, so that motion is deferred. Next item on the agenda is Administration Report SR-189-23 Commissioning Fee, moved by Councillor Lackey, seconded by Councillor Garrell, that council approve a fee of $20 for document commissioning services for inclusion in the 2024 general rates and fees bylaw. Discussion on this motion. Go ahead, Councillor Cumlin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Just reviewing the fee breakdown from across the county. I note that there are several townships that still don't charge a fee, as we haven't up until this point. I understand that it would generate some revenue, a smaller amount, but still some revenue. I am personally of the opinion that we should continue to not charge a fee for residents. For non-residents, I think a $20 fee is reasonable. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Anybody who comes in for this service, they are residents of the township?
Through Your Worship, not necessarily. It's half and half, I would say.
And a follow-up, is there a reason why it's not just our residents and people from outside our area?
Through your worship, I have heard people say it's because we don't charge a commission fee here at the township.
So, I'll ask us an additional question. How many how many documents do you commission in a week?
Through your worship, so from May to November 2023, staff trialed booking the service by appointment only, and on average, staff commissioned 3 documents per week during this period.
So it does take time and energy. It's no different that if you call in and require a tax certificate and somebody has to produce that, there's a fee to lawyer's office to produce that as well. I know it's not a tremendous amount of money, but like the clerk said, if we start charging a fee, perhaps those that are not from here aren't coming here to get things commissioned. Maybe a thought. So go ahead, Councillor Lackey.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I would agree with Councillor Kelman that, as taxpaying residents, maybe our taxpayers don't have to pay, but those who are not taxpayers should not be afforded the same luxury.
I have Councillor Jameson.
I'm just wondering if we actually know what the real cost of that process is. In other words, $20 could not possibly be covering the time and materials per transaction that is being invested. So $20 is pretty nominal, I would suspect. And I'm not asking the clerk to suddenly come up with a figure based on amortizing her salary and going through all that. But the reality is that it's a lot more than $20 an hour.
I'm going to recognize the CAO because I'm sure in his previous life, he would know what the cost of commissioning documents would cost.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, through you. $20 doesn't begin to cover it, but you also have to remember that every document we commission, the township takes on liability. It is up to the commissioning officer to ascertain that the person that's presenting themselves to sign a document is who they actually are, and that they swear that the document is true and so on. So if the township doesn't accurately and carefully confirm the person's identity and the document turns out to be a false thing, there's potential liability against the township. So for residents, if council feels that that's an acceptable thing for us to not charge residents, that's fine. I have a real problem with people that are coming to us because the word is out that we commission things for free, and then we're taking on liability that if it comes home to roost, it's our taxpayers that are going to end up paying for it.
Well, that's a different angle that we didn't discuss. And leave it to the lawyer to have. So Councillor or Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Well, with the enlightenment from our CAO, we could make this real easy and just say, we're only doing this for residents only. That would cut our liability in half if the statement of half of these are residents and half are not.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, I'm sorry, just to clarify, you would like to have this fee for residents only. We have to be open to all members of the public, whether they live in the municipality or not. But again, it's really up to council's decision whether you would like to pursue the $20 fee or go with the option that has been discussed previously.
So the motion, sorry, not the motion, the suggestion was that we only commission documents for our own residents.
Right. Okay. No, I thought I was unaware that we could not block non-residents. Madam Clerk, you're saying we can't, well, that's not an option.
That's not an option.
Okay.
Not an option. So Councillor Graf.
No, I just want to point out, it wouldn't be a good option to block non-residents because someone could be buying a property here from away and need something.
Yeah. So to the cautionary tale given by the CAO means that, and we know that the clerk is very conscientious in doing her job. So I'm not necessarily concerned about that. However, people are out there looking to produce fraudulent documents. So it is up to the discretion of the commissioner to make that call. So what the motion is on the floor is that council approve a fee for a $20 document commissioning services for inclusion in the 2024 general rates and fees bylaw. Sorry, I was not clear. The suggestion is that we wouldn't charge for our own residents. Madam and Mrs. Kelman, correct. So is there an amendment to this motion? Or are we looking to, do you want to pilot this and we can change it later? At $20 a pop? Deputy Mayor Fody.
Clarification, Madam Mayor, what is the current rate? We're asking to
We're
make
not,
it
we don't
20.
charge anything at all.
Well, I agree, we need something.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, Councilor Rowe.
Sorry, each time we use the stamp on a document, is that $20 or is that the way it would be, multiple documents? I came in with multiple situation, so I could run a bill up. Is that how that would work?
Through your worship, just for clarification, it would be for the majority of documents, but the fee wouldn't be applicable for business purposes. So that would include planning and development applications.
It
So it's
wouldn't
just for,
apply to.
it's just for people bringing a document in to be commissioned, not township documents.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the question as it's stated here, moved by Councilor Lackey, seconded by Councilor Grell, that council approve a fee of $20 for a document commissioning service for inclusion in the 2024 general rates and fees bylaw. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Okay. Do we need a personal break? That would be good. Okay, so we will reconvene at 8 p.m. and then we'll be good to go. So we'll take a brief 10-minute break.